Hello, and welcome to another episode of Lessons Learned from UK Sailmakers. I'm Buttons Padin, and today I'm speaking with Sylvain Barrielle, who owns and runs the UK Loft in San Francisco. Hello, Sylvain, and welcome to Lessons Learned.
Hey, how are you?
Sylvain came to sailmaking after being a competitive sailor for many years, and he was perhaps doing it without the limelight that others enjoyed. Sylvain, tell us some of the people that you sailed with.
So in Europe was Isabelle Autissier, Marc Pajot, Luc Gelusseau, Jerry Roof, and on the English side, people like Terry Chinson, Chris Dixon, little bit with Russell Coutts on the Tour de France, and John Cutler. Yeah, a lot of people.
That's some pretty good company. How about some boats or classes that you sailed?
I did all the America's Cup class from 87 to 2013, all the way to AC45. I didn't sail on the AC72. And match racing, the Memphis, all the boats for the Tour de France à la voile, IOR 50 back in the day, Maxi Yachts, Formula 40. Did quite a bit of multi-hull around 85, 87, just after French Kiss America's Cup. Was a little bit crazy at the time, but race around Europe, establishing the Ruban Bleu. It was just non-stop, you know, it was 200 days on the water for years.
I guess the highlight is the 6 America's Cup campaigns that you were involved with.
It is in a sense, but you know, the America's Cup of my era was like doing a master or doing a PhD in your industry, you know, because we were really involved with everything, which have changed now. It's much more specialized. It is for sure, but you know, doing a race around Europe on a 20-meter multi-hull is something special too.
We'll get into the America's Cup in a little bit. Tell us where you grew up and about your sailing experiences when you were a kid.
So I grew up in Marseille, south of France. It's a little bit like the south in America, huge accent. It's on the water. A lot of people we sail professionally have been to Marseille. The next Olympic Games are in Marseille in 2024. The Med is fantastic to sail, a lot of racing. The thing in France is that you could practice a sport, which was part of your college or school program, and very quickly end up doing the Wednesday sailing. And I liked it, so I started to do the holidays and weekend. And very quickly from there, I meet people around the club, start to sell bigger boats, and start to do all the big local races, you know, the SNIM, Giraglia. It was just a different time where, you know, you start at one time and you finish when you finish.
You had a big break when you were 17, I understand.
I had the chance to get involved with a boat called Elizara, which was a maxi yacht owned by Herbert von Karajan. And that boat was based in Saint-Tropez. Then we used to travel and race in Porto Cervo, Palma de Mallorca. And this was also my first introduction to English-speaking skippers, because Harold Cudmore, who ended up doing quite a bit of sailing after that. And Peter Batman was a driver. So this introduced me to the big boats at a very young age. And this is when the French with Marc Pajot started French Kiss for the America's Cup. So they were looking for people, obviously young, which had experience with big boats. And that's what made the connection. I ended up doing a week contract, a month contract, a 6-month contract, and a contract until the end. The military, when I grew up, was mandatory in France. And I ended up doing my 1-year military in Perth before the America's Cup, the year of World Championship. So that was 1986.
You were pretty young to be on a 12-meter at that point.
Yeah, I was pretty young and pretty small too. It was fine, but I was physically way too small for the condition in Fremantle. Then very quickly end up trimming jib, but at the same time I was working for the sail loft. Because back in that day, we were making all our sails on the floor. We didn't have a plotter even at the time. We were just cutting out of the roll of cloth. And so very quickly, I ended up making all the jibs, all the genois for the 12 meters. Then when I stopped to race on the boat, work at full time at the loft.
So it sounds like over the series of these 6 campaigns that you did everything sort of bow to stern, both on and off the boat.
Yeah, for sure did a lot of trimming and testing for many years, that's for sure.
I can only imagine looking, I mean, that's a 20+ year span of time.
Yeah.
How the sales in terms of the materials, the design, the manufacturing techniques evolved. What are some of the things that you saw happen during that period of time?
I've seen some interesting things. Looking at the Spinnaker in Fremantle, I think that was the first Spinnaker he used the software to design the sail. So I've seen that, the beginning of sail software. The French have always been very ahead of a curve with fabric and the material. Yeah, was a huge evolution. The big step was 87 to 91. 91, we start to see, 3DL and other materials in radial arriving. 87 was a human evolution where everybody became a professional. And 91 is a big technology we start to get involved with sailing. From then, the technology keep improving exponentially.
There was one material you were using that
I know where you're going with that.
very susceptible to light degradation. What was that?
Yeah. PBO, I think it came on the market around 98 or 99. PBO came running out of the starting block and it turned out to be a disaster. Everything was falling apart. Sails were just breaking down because the mechanical property of the fiber was just degrading extremely quickly on UV and light exposure. It was, learned by trying more than anything else.
One of the justifications of the America's Cup expenses has always been that it's the leading edge of sailmaking technology and boat building technology. And it sounds like you were on that leading edge for many years in terms of.
Yeah, it's different nowadays. You have so many testing capability that the product are ready to run.
So then let me shift gears on you a little bit. I'm looking at the list of boats that you sailed on, from the 12-meter French Kiss, the last time the 12s were used in Fremantle, to 4 programs with the ICE70 boats with Ile de Paris, the France 2 and 3, 6/10, and then in 2007, France joined up with the China team. And then in 2013, sailing the AC45s in San Francisco, being involved there. You've got to have some great memories of particular stories. Can you share a couple with us?
There's some good ones, some bad ones, So 87, we broke our rig on Freedom, trying to drop the mainsail, and it went from 15 to 45 knots. The tack of the mainsail broke up and the mast came down on the boat, and we had some extremely severe injury. So that was not good. A bad one was the 95 America's Cup. Well, that went south, sadly, because I think we had a good team. The boat fell off a crane. The keel went through the boat. So we had to rebuild that boat in San Diego. Then when we finished that, we tried to go to measure the boat. We jumped a wave, damaged the keel. We had to race the next day, race with that boat, lost the keel. Then switched to the other boat, did the third round robin. The last race against the Spanish, we were going downwind. We realized that the Australian boat was sinking right in front of us. So we just went probably 100 yards from them. And I still remember the masthead going under the water.
This is one Australia when it collapsed. You were on the last leg. You were the second round robin against Spain.
Yeah, we were the second pair against Spain. And when we run the Leeward mark, do our upwind on the last tack on the ley line to cross the finishing line, we lost the rig. So that was the end of it. We didn't cross the finishing line, didn't mark the point to go in semifinal, so we were out. So that was the end of a very complicated America's Cup that time around.
That was an exciting and not somewhat dangerous race.
We spent quite a lot of time in San Diego because we had the America's Cup before 1992. And the weather was very, very different. In 95, we had a lot of more waves. It's incredible the difference in weather between these two America's Cup.
Sylvain, tell us a little about your point of view on the AC72s that sailed as catamarans in San Francisco.
The design or the idea got a little bit out of hand at the beginning, but you have to push the envelope. I think they got very, very lucky that the boat were foiling. With the size of a wing and the power of the wing, they probably never could have sailed in a bay, 25 to 30 knots at the top mark. I think we'd have seen a carnage in capsizes. The rule did everything to avoid people to have foils. When the America's Cup went with the AC75, when everybody saw the first design, said, oh, what's going to happen here? And ended up working pretty well, actually.
we're always trying to expand the sport of sailing. And one of the things that I know happened is, and this was the run up to 2007, the French team started working with Team China. How did the blend of the French and the Chinese work in terms of sailing together and sharing information and just enjoying the racing?
The first thing was to find the people. We were very early on into getting Chinese into sailing. We got a lot of the dinghy sailors. Then the second thing was to teach them. And it was quite a culture shock because when you come from mainland China and you end up in Valencia, Spain, eating tapas, it's a bit of a change in your life. What you have to look is 10 years later, because if you look at all the kids we came to Valencia on this AC program, pretty much all of them end up on the Volvo 70 program, which was very successful with a French Dongfang. Finished third of the first Volvo and won the second one. They were exposed to a lot of high-end sailing, and I hope in China they can do what we did, bring more people to sail and bring them to higher level. I hope they are still involved and bringing what they learned to the next generation.
Okay, let me shift gears on you again then. You've been sailing since you were a kid. Who are the people that you've met that have influenced you the most in terms of your sailing and your sail making?
In terms of sailmaking, I will say for sure Luc Gélusseau. I had the chance to work with very funny people and good people and competent people. You know, when you're doing that full time with so many good people, you get few things from people.
So then, tell us about some of the more interesting sails that you worked on and designed, in fact.
There is a little bit of everything and anything, you know. But the early years of offshore multi-hull on a big trimaran, we didn't really have all the technology we have now. So we didn't know for sure what we were getting into. So these were pretty big projects at the time. Even the machinery was not there. It was pretty complex. The America's Cup, obviously, you know, every single sail you do in the America's Cup, you go pretty far in the detail. We made our own sails until the end of 95. So we will end up, for example, in San Diego, we had a full loft and we were producing all the sails for the 95 America's Cup and 92 America's Cup. But that changed.
The level of sailing that you have done has been at the very highest. But there have got to be things that you've learned that can be translated to the average club racer. What are the things that you would want to share to your customers and our listeners who just want to sail well on Thursday night?
I think the first and most important thing is to have a clear goal, short term and long term, of what you want to do with your boat, how far you want to push the envelope in terms of competition. If you want to sail with your friend, you know, especially on the West Coast, the level is very up and down. You have some people which are good and some people who are learning. And at the end of the day, it's the teamwork. Everything about soft sails, mast tune, you know, where to sit on the boat, where to move forward, what to move aft, how much rudder angle. It's a lot of detail, so you have to start somewhere and slowly bring it in.
Sylvain, what are you sailing these days?
Next week, I'm doing cabo race actually on a Delaware 46 with a customer, which is slowly getting in the next stage of getting a racing boat. I mean, this boat is a cruiser racer. I'm going to do Transpac, then Les Voiles de Saint-Tropez and some events in Europe on the ICE70 Bandido.
Tell us a little bit about it and about the program and how you were all involved.
The whole project started with the UK president, John Bennett from San Diego, which had a customer in Mexico called Ernesto. Ernesto decided to buy a TP52. And when the TP52 was brought, I came along and I started to race with them. 2 or 3 years down the road, he was thinking about doing a bigger boat, which was designed by Umberto Felci, built by ICE Yachts in Italy. We had a great team. The things went really well. And we are starting to do some distance racing. So yeah, no, the boat was a huge effort of a lot of people. So John was involved and Pat was involved with the sail design. And, so I was more involved with, you know, the general project management with everyone and putting the boat, sail trial and things like that.
One of the things that I'm finding interesting about your Bandido program is that it is really a collaboration of a number of different people within UK Sailmakers. You have John Bennett down in San Diego, whose customer it is, and put the program together in the first place. You've been helping with the sail designs and the sail management and the preparation of the program. And Pat Considine, UK's lead designer in Chicago, designed many of the sails. So I think that's great that you get people across the UK network working together, making it better for their customers.
Well, you can do everything by yourself if you like, but when you have people which are competent close to you and you can use them, well, you should.
It sounds like a fun season ahead. Well, thank you, Sylvain Barrielle.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for sharing some of your lessons learned. So visit uksailmakers.com to find more episodes of Lessons Learned and poke around in the how-to section for tips on sails, boat handling, safety in sea, and more. So for UK Sailmakers, this is Buttons Padine saying, sail with confidence.